everyone. All right. Here we are, New Whiskey Order. This is Tim MacKenzie here with Travis Williams. We are taking things over for the Murray McDavid tasting. Get your capitals now. And yeah, we've got some great whiskeys here. Obviously, this one is curated by the one and only Russell, who may be joining us in a little bit. All of these are heavy wine cask influenced whiskeys. I got Casey in the waiting room. 1 second, let me kick him in. So yeah, Murray McDavid. I'm gonna put up our slideshow, so bear with me while we share the screen here. Everybody let me know with a thumbs up if you are viewing this. All right, looking good. Right, so we've got whiskeys from the Highlands. We've got some down in Speyside. We've got one from Islay. So there's a nice spread of different whiskeys here. And
Are you able to put it full screen?
Yeah, 1 sec. I'm trying to figure that out right now. Sorry, 1 sec. There we go.
Nice.
Is that looking all right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So yeah, this is our spread. We've got two from Tobermory. We've got a singleton of Dufftown. We've got one from Loch Lomond, Glendullan, Bowmore, and Auchroisk. So we're going to start things off with a little bit of a background on Murray McDavid itself. This is an independent bottler established in 1994. 3 owners, Mark Rainier, who comes from a long line of a family of wine merchants. Simon Coughlin, also another big time name in the wine world, and Gordon Wright, who is one of the board of directors members at Springbank. Their big thing coming into those mid-90s was acing, additional cask enhancement. We call it cask finishing. At this point, they have a huge spread of different distilleries that they've worked with, and I don't know if I've ever seen any independent bottler use the varying amounts of cask types. So some unique stuff in there. There's some really unique casks in the mix tonight. Some of the history that Myke provided in 2000, Murray McDavid purchased Bruichladdich. They headhunted Jim McEwan from Bowmore Distillery, brought him in as the master distiller, and that rejuvenated. I'm getting some feedback. Sorry. I'm not sure who it is, but anyway,
can you just mute Whiskey Joe, maybe?
Whiskey Joe.
Would you guys mind muting, please?
Sorry. Got it. So yeah, 2012, Bruichladdich and Murray McDavid were purchased by Remy Cointreau. So a little bit of a change there. And at that point, Mark Rainier kind of pivoted and moved out to Ireland to start doing some distilling there. I'm sure you guys have heard of some of his whiskeys. Also continuing with the idea of terroir within whiskey, which is kind of unique, definitely came from the wine world. 2013, Murray McDavid was sold to ACO Limited, and most of their operations moved to Colburn Distillery. So a little bit of shuffling there, but I find that the stuff that was coming out of Murray McDavid from that 1994 point to the mid 2000s, there's really, really interesting whiskeys. Not for the faint of hearted, because there's a lot of weird cask influences. So move on from there. They have a breakdown, a hierarchy, you could say, within the lines that Murray McDavid puts out. The Mission Gold is going to be the older vintages, all single malts. Some of like their best offerings are coming out of the Mission Gold. Benchmark is going to be core range of like that post 10-year mark whiskey. Mystery malts, I've had a couple of these. they're all, for the most part, there's going to be distilleries that can't be named due to copyright issues, and then there's some that they just withhold for, you know, the fun of it. The select grain line is just a range of single grain whiskeys. Obviously, Scotland has some bangers in there. I think I've had an Invergordon from Murray McDavid that was really tasty. The vatting are blended malts, and then crafted blend are blended whiskeys that are a mixture of single malts and grains. First thing we
Can
want to
I ask
Yeah,
a question, Neil? Just to
Yeah.
be sure, Colburn Distillery is a Speyside, if I'm right.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So the big part about this tasting, obviously, because of Simon Coughlin and Mark Rainier's connection to the wine world, they've been able to source incredible wine casks from all over the world through their contacts. So just to give some background on a couple of these appellations, we've got, oh, sorry, skipped ahead, my fault. We've got Tempanillo wine grapes, which are going to be taking up what we know of as Rioja. This is one of Spain's most famous regional wines. They're known because of the area, once again, the terroir. These are like semi-arid situations, so you get savory notes, dusty flavors, and the ability to age these whiskeys for longer periods of time than traditional like fortified wines. I particularly myself, I love Rioja and peated whiskey, so I'm really interested to taste some that are not peated examples, which is what we have on the list today. These whiskeys tend to have a darker fruit, a darker berry type of stone fruit taste to them. Some with even a little bit of like a dill or a meatiness, I've found, vanilla and leather. So let's jump right into this first one, which is the Glendullan 1993, and I'm going to open it up to Travis, who is going to be presenting this whiskey.
Good evening, all. So thanks for all that information, Tim, for presenting, Myke, for, of course, all your hard work and putting this together on the slides and stuff. There's learned a lot just in those first few coming out. So yeah, like Tim said, this is our first whiskey of the night. It's Glendullan, I believe is how you pronounce it. 1993. As I was saying before we started recording or anything, I'm here as a novice with you guys on a lot of these things. I've never seen them, never had them, much like Tim. I poured them a while ago. They've been sitting here and I haven't nosed them. So you know, I'm learning along with you. I got a little information on the distillery. This is also a Dufftown whiskey. It's known in the United States. They have a singleton line, is what known for the US. It was one of the last distilleries built in Dufftown. I believe it was like 1897 is when it came online. So, Tim, when you said we had a Dufftown earlier, I don't know what the difference is, whether both singletons of Dufftown. It'll be interesting to see those the comparison between the two, how similar they may or may not be.
Yeah, I think my understanding is that there's within Dufftown there are multiple distilleries, right? So because of the ownership is the same, it has like an enveloping sort of effect to it.
Right. Yeah, I get. Yeah.
Hold on, I think.
Yeah, rotate joint.
That's that rotating again.
Yeah, one sec, I'll take care of this. 2 sec. We gotta mute you, Rohit. Sorry, buddy. All right. Should be good there. Travis.
All right. So yeah, so the Glendullan, the Murray McDavid Glendullan, 1993, Rioja casks, 2,400 bottles. We see here 46%, 14 years. Don't know how long the finish or, you know, a lot of these being independent bottles, it's hard to find some of the information on some of this stuff as well. You know, they guard some of these, they're playing close to the vest. They're not really with how long their finishes are, and I'm sure I could have really dug down and found a bunch of stuff, but I was more interested, like you guys, just trying to kind of experience it time without learning too much. For
And
myself,
also, what I was going to say, Travis, the like 2007, a lot of these were bottled in those, like within that first 10 years of Murray McDavid, and there was not a lot of transparency at that time.
right. Yeah.
So that's a factor for sure.
Yeah. And one of my, I don't know, I'm sure maybe a lot of you experience it. I'll read some tasting notes before tasting a whiskey, and all of a sudden it's there instantly. And it's kind of, for myself, sometimes I'll absorb those and they just kind of sit there, and I don't know if I'm really tasting it or if it's just kind of suggested that I'm tasting it. So, I mean, sure, there's obviously a little bit to it that you are going to taste what's there, but the added influence, like you're going to notice a little bit more. So I try to avoid everything I could on these, just to experience it with you guys for the first time as well.
Agreed, myself as well. So everybody give this a nose. Feel free to put notes in the chat, obviously. This is a little more free form. So if you want to unmute yourself and give us an idea of what you're experiencing, that's what it's all about. What do you got, Travis? Anything?
So for me, I pick up I get a lot of heavy malt on this one, almost like biscuits, heavy baked biscuits, and
Yeah,
maybe a
I agree.
strawberry jam on it.
There's like that sweet malt character.
Yeah.
I think there's spirit that's popping through here. I get like mandarin oranges, like sugar icing, not like a cream cheese icing, but like a standard white icing. It's very light. It's fresh too. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a small. I'm thinking for myself, I'm getting a really small hint, like a kiss of lemon in the background.
I like that strawberry, the strawberry note too.
Strawberry jam, yeah, that's good. I like that one.
Kind of remind, almost like strawberry shortcakey too, with that sweet baking.
Well, yeah, well, I don't know, Sam, how do you eat your strawberry shortcake? I know there's, some people use the spongy cake and others use biscuits. So I mean, that biscuits and that strawberry jam, that's a good combo for sure.
And even for a 14 years, you don't have the bourbon-like aromas, like, I mean, vanilla or oak, or it's
Yeah,
not there on the nose.
it's very, yeah, it's void of what you would expect from the bourbon cask for sure. But once again, like the wine influence tends to overarch. So, all right, what are we getting on the palate?
Anybody else have notes on the? I gotta open up the chat, I guess. On the
I
nose.
just chucked it open myself. We got berries, leather, balsamic vinegar from Dave. I definitely I can feel that. Licorice, chocolate muffins. Glendullan is Johnny Walker Black from Drew and Sheila. We want these hard hitting notes here, so proper.
Yeah.
I mean, on the palate, I just took a tiny little sip, and to me, it's a little more alcohol forward than I would expect from the 46%.
Yeah.
But it gets smooth pretty fast.
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't stain.
No,
I like
it's not
that.
prickly. Yeah. I get actually a lot of oak spices on the palate. So whereas it was not so much there on the nose at all. Right off the bat, I get like what you would expect from like a graham cracker type of or a graham cracker crust.
Yeah, almost a lemon tart. A small lemon tart. I do get a crazy note right off the bat from my palate. I picked up a couple blueberries and cream almost.
Okay.
that's a pretty good starter.
Yeah,
there's-
it's not a slouch, that's for sure. Anybody else? We got some more notes coming in the chat. We got pear and a violent taste of Belle de Brie, I believe. David, you can correct my atrocious French. Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a pretty tasty whiskey. I'm not getting any off notes in particular. I mean,
No,
the nose hasn't changed dramatic. I like to go back and really re-nose something once I've had a taste too, and it hasn't changed dramatically. I do get a light tobacco, like a
Yes. I couldn't place it or something like that. Maybe the tobacco or leather or whatever.
yeah,
But it's like a nice light dessert. It's beautiful.
yeah.
taste the barley at all on that, Tim?
What's that?
Can you taste the barley at all, like the grain or anything on it? It's
Not really on the palate. No.
no.
On the nose, you got it pretty much.
Yeah.
But not on the ballot.
It's
The
almost like-
balance between the bourbon and the Rioja cask is quite amazing here.
I'm pretty impressed.
It's like a symbiose.
Yeah, I wouldn't have paired this nose with this palate. It's crazy.
Not at all.
It is wacky though. I like it. It's got a lot going on.
It's interesting. I think that was the whole idea behind this tasting when we were formulating possible situations with Russell. It was like, can we do a weird wine cask situation without it being too aggressive? But we've got Brian just gave us berries and cocoa, and he does get some vanilla. I think I might get a little vanilla bean on the finish.
On the finish, yeah.
Yeah.
The finish is
Oh,
not
that-
pretty long. You have a medium finish, as said. But you finish with a sugary, it's like
Yeah.
like if you get a spoon of honey.
Seriously, yeah. Actually, now that you say honey, it reminds me of like a darker Manuka honey.
Yeah, sure.
Good stuff.
I almost got almost like a stale rye bread on the finish.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that was. I'm sure you, Tim. I'm sure most of us. You guys save a little bit for later to come back to it after a few.
Yeah. I'd like to every once in if there's something that really blows my mind too. I have a tendency just to clean out the glass that I have.
Yeah,
Like this one, it's even I put a little bit of water in, but it's still shining. Like I get all the notes even after washing it out. So I'm surprised. 46%.
that's a great opener.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody ready to move on to whiskey number 2? Yeah. All right, let's do this. So this is the Old Dusty, and this is also going to be presented by Travis.
I will do my best. Now this one I have no idea. Rhsodhu? Rhsodhu? Rhsodhu?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds right.
1979 Loch Lomond, Murray McDavid, mission number 3. Number 3, I have no idea what that means. I don't know if it's like their third series, third release. This was number 3 in a certain release. Distilled in 1979, bottled in 2004. Again, one of the earlier bottlings from Murray McDavid. This one's a 24-year at 46%. Now, the number of bottles would suggest it's probably a single cask. So that 46%, I'm sure, is going to, is going to be a lot different. There'll be a lot more on the palate. There'll be a lot more flavor there. A lot of people tend to forget when you see these older bottlings, that 44, 45, 46% is still at a cask strength of that percent. So not diluted, it's not watered down. You'll get the full strength of the whiskey as it is, as it came out of the cask 24 years later. This one's just a straight oak cask. This one, I believe, was one of the last casks, if I read it correctly, and I could have misread it by, that was selected by Jim McEwan for gosh darn it, I'm drawing a blank now. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
No,
I don't.
all good. I mean, to me, like Jim also worth saying, Jim's favorite percentage of alcohol is 46%. So that's why you see that on a lot. That, like, I've done a ton of tastings with him, and he, even the cask strength stuff, he is liberal with water to get it down to that amount. But
Interesting.
yeah, and once again, this is the mission portion. So these are like their highest end casks that they're sitting on. And
Right.
also another thing too, almost I think all of these were bottled at Bruichladdich too. So they're sending these casks out to Islay. So I'm interested, like, I don't, because I'm such a nerd with like comparisons. I'd love to like put these up next to an Old Rhsodhu from 1979 that was bottled back on mainland, just to see if there's differences. But yeah, this is interesting. What are you guys getting on the nose?
More pears. Man.
Yeah, a lot of orchard fruits, like pears, apples, maybe even a little peach.
Barley too.
Yeah, there's sweetness to the grain for sure. I'm getting like there's a point with whiskeys that are over like 22 years, from my perspective at least, where you start getting into like an over oaking scenario. This is like the perfect amount of oakiness on the nose, at least. I haven't tasted it.
Yeah, there's just a slight musk to it, but not too much.
Yeah, there's
There's
like a little bit of wood putty too.
Yeah.
I'm getting like a maybe creme brulee, not the surface, but or flan actually.
Flan. There you go.
The uncook.
I love Brian's tasting notes there, like in the chat.
Gotta open it up again.
Yeah, when I first poured this and smelled this, it smelled like I was walking into a home with flowers. Not to be morbid, that's I don't know why. It's the first thing that like came to my mind. And then as it kind of settled, I got the overripe fruits.
It paints a picture.
I mean, you said dusty, so that's
yeah. Yeah, old dusty library books. I can see. Yeah, that funeral home smell is very unique and just.
But it's good. It's good though, honestly. The
yeah.
Oh, it's really good. I like the funk.
It's very pleasant. I could nose it for a while.
Yeah, it's good.
It's not too old.
No.
Sometimes you have the overpass of the I don't know how to say it, but it's like mushroom like, and
yeah, the umami takes over.
Yeah.
Really nice. Are you guys ready to taste this thing or what?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. Wow. So Ricardo said fruit bomb on the palate, and I'm right there with it. This is like fruit salad. I'm getting tropical fruits. I'm getting orchard fruits, berries, and it's just going and going and going. Finishing pretty dry though.
Short and sweet.
It's causing my mouth to water a bit.
Yeah, for sure. The nose carries through the palate, but it's a lot softer on the palate. in a sense. I mean, it's I don't know how to explain it.
I know it's multi-layered is what I'm
Yeah.
getting.
It's more
Yeah, it's big time tropical fruits, big time.
This is not a whiskey that I'm super familiar with. I think I might have had one other previously. And this is another one. The nose and the palate, there's massive disparity. Like on the nose, it's so delicate and it's kind of like coaxing you to get deeper into it.
You know, Tim, I've noticed, and I've done the last couple of tastings I've done. I was watching something somewhere, you know, like a wine sommelier or whatever. They'll draw on the oxygen when they take a little sip. I've done that a few times for whiskeys now, and it changes the complexity of the whiskey, and you pick up some different extra breath of oxygen or inhale of oxygen with it. I don't know what it is, or how it works, or why it works, but and you do that, you get not a typical apple note on it, but just like the peel, not the fleshy part of the meat, just the peel. Very cool note.
100% agree with it. Like it almost made like when I like took a nice breath at like the front of my mouth, and all of a sudden there was so much, like there was very alcohol-y and
a little bitter,
but I don't get that on the palate any other way.
No, not at all. That's quite pleasant.
This is a wild one.
Yeah, you have three different stage, and in this one you have all the smells that are quite amazing. You have all the palate that explodes in fruits, and you have a finish pretty sec is
extremely dry.
yeah, pretty dry and pretty short.
Yeah, medium short, very thin, very drawing for sure. Yeah, it leaves the back of your jaws, like Tim was saying, you know, little watery.
It's fun going back to the nose now. I get there's a funkiness to it. It almost like if you took cardboard and like put it in the ocean and then let it dry.
Yeah.
There's like a salinity, but I don't want to say like it's not off-putting at all. But like when you walk into somewhere where there's like a basement type of it's not forefront, it's at the back of it.
It's like a damp paper. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Paper
The way,
cardboard.
the way you guys describe it, I feel like I'm not alone to kind of nose it and kind of try to dig back in my memories. It's kind of enlightening a bunch of memories, but I'm not able to narrow it down on something. But my olfactive memory kind of tells me that I know a lot about that nose, but I'm not able to narrow it in my background.
Definitely, I agree. Now, as you said that, I was thinking like fresh, like taking sharpening a pencil. There's a little bit of like that river rocky, kind of like stones against each other minerality.
I don't know if it's my nose that is kind of getting used to it, but it seems like it's evolving nonstop since I kind of dropped it in the glass. It's really weird.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm loving this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a very nice world.
I like a chameleon. So
if you ask me right at the beginning of the second, I will say the first one was amazing. The second one's like, oh, okay, maybe not. But
it's
no,
weird.
but yeah. But I'm letting it's settle there, and I'll taste it later. And like David's saying, it's like an evolution in time.
It's
So we'll see. We'll see. In an
Yeah,
hour.
what's nice about this tasting is, you know, I know we have a Bowmore our last pour, it'll be interesting to see how soft or mellow the peat is on this one, or how different it is. But it'll give you an opportunity to go back to this from the very beginning, and you know your palate can be blowing out the peat or high ABVs. But it'll be. I just poured the rest of that one back to after the done with the night to see how it goes. Like Tim, like you were saying, yeah, I got almost very not like you ever been to like an antique store and you're looking through old books, the books that have the cloth covers, not the cellophane or just the early 70s, 60s, but like the old ones from 30s, 40s that you just kind of, you know, crack open at an antique store, may not have been touched for, you know, several years just sitting there. You get that little waft of musk, like you said, wet paper or damp paper if it's just been sitting there. It's a very unique smell.
Yeah, I'm leaving a bit to come back to as well. So we got some notes in here that I want to showcase. Ricardo's got some bangers. Bruised orchard fruit, fresh yellow dates, a little sharp and astringent. I agree with all of that. Chalky is a great descriptor.
Great, yes.
100%. Steely finish. That I think that might be a better descriptor than what I said with the minerality.
That chalk and steel for sure. Yeah.
He said whiskey nerds whiskey. 1,000% agreed.
And
he pre-poured these 60 minutes before, which is right at the zone I think that I was at.
I think yeah, I was about the same time you were.
All right, so how are we doing? Is everybody through these? Are we ready to make the move to the next dram? Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of head shaking, not seeing anyone.
Do it.
It's counteracting, so we're gonna make the move to
Down.
number 3. So we're moving to a different type of wine here. I am a massive Syrah fan and also Shiraz fan. So I'm very, very delighted to present the.
Excuse me to interrupt him.
Yeah.
So the second one, there wasn't any wine finish in there.
It wasn't named. It's just put in as oak casks.
Yeah.
That may or may not be indicative of what actually happened with the whiskey. This is a period of time when, you know, the distilleries and especially independent bottlers were keeping their, you know, there were more secrets abound than there are today. So it wouldn't shock me that there may have been some like an acing to this whiskey, but it was not disclosed.
Yeah, I think with that, like you said, that drying, how quick it dries, how thin it was. I think there was some sort of other cask at play there. Just no idea what it would be.
Yeah, and all of those fruits too, like just like there's definitely
like a white wine almost.
Yeah, I think like
I
the
agree.
stone fruits and some of like the orchard fruits, that's more of the actual spirit.
Right.
The forest berries and that kind of and the drying influence, to me, like the maybe even like a white dessert wine like a Muscat or a Moscato, Sauterne. Like I've for sure had some other Murray McDavids that were in that vein. They just didn't disclose it. So that's a great point out for sure.
Okay, since it wasn't stated, I just wanted to ask the question.
No, that's huge for sure, because that's the whole vibe of this tasting. So great thing to point out. Absolutely. So here, moving on to this next whiskey, and I believe, yeah, just this next one. So here we are in the Syrah zone. It's a rich, powerful, meaty red wine, originating from the Rhone area of France. This Syrah is also the most planted grape in Australia, where they call it Shiraz. I love McLaren Vale Shirazes. If you haven't had any, dive into them. Penfolds, de Ehrenberg, amazing red wines if you like that darker red. And they're giving a profile of blueberry, black plum. I get sometimes like black raspberry, milk chocolates, semi-sweet chocolates, tobacco, and then a peppery ending. So a lot of good stuff in there. This is what we're looking forward to when we move on to the next slide here, which is dealing with the specific appellation. So I believe this is Guigal, which is a wine producer in the Ampuy.
Guigal.
Guigal, thank you. Actually, we have enough French Canadians on here that I'm happy to accept some corrections here. So is it Ampuy area of southern Rhone?
Must be that, yeah.
Yeah. And
Sounds
then,
right.
Saint Joseph is a region in the northern Rhone, and these wines are imparting a little bit more of like a savory element, black olive, pepper, richer, more complex wines than a Côte Rôtie. So the next whiskey that we're going to have is this Dufftown 1993. Let's give it a nose. So right off the bat, I'm getting a lot of berries like blackberry, currants. There's definitely a savory element to it, almost like a light soy sauce. There's also kind of a papery note. If you've ever opened up like a ream of paper, there's kind of a smell that gets released. Some fruit, a bit of fruitiness too. I'm gonna pop over to the chat and see what we've got going on here.
As I said, I definitely get those skinned fruits, different fruits as well. And
Colin says blueberry. This is like blueberry pie to the 9,000th degree to me, now that you've said it.
there it is. See, you read that note, creeps right in there.
Ricardo with eucalyptus. There's absolutely
There you go.
a bit of that in there. I almost get like a spearmint on the end of the nose. Really interesting. So this one's coming in at 46%, 12 years old, 3,000 bottles. So this has to be, to me, that's telling you it's multiple barriques that have been vatted. Blueberry spearmint gum. I would buy some from Ricardo. I'm with you, man. There's another herbal note to it. I'm trying to decipher. Oh, rosemary.
Rosemary?
That's what Ricardo chucked out. I'm almost getting almost like a parsley. It's at the end of the nose.
Yeah, I can see that.
Definitely berries and fresh herbs in there. Absolutely.
It's very summery smelling to me, like heart of the summer. A little bit of oak spice too, if you
A little bit of, yeah.
just a quick light nose. Sage from John L. That's a good call too. Like unburnt sage, like a fresh sage. Really interesting. All right, you guys ready to give it a taste? If you haven't already. very drying to me, which makes sense because a Syrah typically has that effect. I get a lot more like pipe tobacco notes to this than any of the others. Dark chocolate.
Eucalyptus follows.
Chocolates, coffee leathers, all those dark notes for sure.
Yep. It's
I thought the
sitting.
eucalyptus follows it through too.
It's sitting in the back of my palate too, like underneath my tongue. The long finish.
And the nose doesn't announce anything that you have in the mouth.
No, not at all.
I get the eucalyptus all the way through.
Definitely.
Yes.
But that's like one of the first ones that actually the nose matched the palate in some ways.
Right.
That's a big, I mean, yeah, I get it. For, I would expect it after that nose.
There's almost a pineapple note now that I've tasted it. If you give it a nose, a very light nosing, I get a little bit of pineapple immediately before there's like a woody spice that kicks in. Another one that's really wild. I wish I was more familiar with Dufftown Spirit.
It's always create, you know, Dufftown. They're always, to me, ones that I've had are big vanilla, very creamy, a little bit fruity. I guess it is, you know, you said there's so many different variations of the style whiskey.
Yeah. I had one just this past weekend and it was so light in comparison. Like I would never have thought that they were from the same distillery. I wonder if they've done different cuts throughout the years. With this being like a 2005 bottling. The one that I had was definitely, I think it was distilled in the around when this was bottled.
Okay.
Anyone else familiar with Dufftown Spirit that can give us a comparison?
I have no idea, but I love that peppercorn on the end. It gets on the tip of your tongue. Like I don't know if anyone else is feeling that. It's almost like a bit of spice. It's really nice. Does anyone else taste that? Like you said, the peppercorn. I can't. It's not jalapeno, but it's definitely some spice. It's beautiful.
100%. It's almost like effervescent.
Yeah, because of the menthol and the eucalyptus, it kind of just hangs around and the pepper stays for the last bit. It's awesome.
Ricardo once again is coming through with some bangers. Baby sherry notes. Totally could see that. Balanced nicely with bourbon and red wine casks. Dark fruits, fudge, toffee, and a bit jammy. All right in line.
If we get this blind, will you give this bottle 12 years? I won't. I will say 15, maybe 17 years.
I agree with you. There's maturity to it.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. This is another one that I'm really impressed with.
It seems like the wine casts just throw everything on its head, like how old it is, how much ABV it's got. Like it's just, it's wild. It's really cool.
I'm gonna leave a little bit of this for later as well.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one.
Yeah, the Syrah gives a lot of depth to it, to the spirit. It's like, I don't know if you have, I think you've did, but drink a few wine of Syrah, but it's quite, I don't know how to say it in English, but astringent, it gives a lot.
Yeah.
And you can get this in the spirit. It's, you have the dryness, you have the fruits, you have the the aromas, all of those, and you have a finish like we never had with the 2 drinks we have before. This is the best finish we have since we start this this tasting.
I totally agree with you. Ricardo also just chucked in Northern Rhone Syrah can be perfumey, silky rich. You can chug the bottle. This one's amazing. I'm right there with you. I think this cask selection has just produced something really, really special with a potentially like, you know, marginal spirit.
Tim? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Russell's trying to get in.
Oh, really? Oh my God. Gotta go figure. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Should be good. All right, Russ, are you with us now?
See him.
There we go.
Yeah.
Look at that shirt.
What is he working with today?
I know.
I know shirt.
I know. That was called out.
Two different ones.
Yeah, I may have made a wardrobe request.
Prime. Russell, have you tasted any?
So can't see yourself. That's okay. A second. Can't hear you guys.
He's in Joe's garage.
Oh, he's in the garage too. Okay.
Audio will be messed up, Russell, when you're chatting because there's so many screens on at the same time. Even though they're turned off for the mic, it's gonna get all weird for us to hear. Just so you're aware. Like maybe just get a screen in there, like a laptop screen. Just put it far away.
Trade a bottle of whiskey and get a projector.
Nah. All right. So anybody else with notes on the Dufftown before we make the move? Not seeing anything in the chat, so let's make the move to number 4. This one is going to be presented by Travis. So take it away.
Yeah, we got the so our next pour this evening is done in a port. So we say wine port cask, Portugal's flagship and aged sweet fortified wine. Lots of different ranges of styles, largely based on different techniques. Typically ruby and tawny port. Sure, port seems to be a very common theme in some casks and independent bottlers. It's one that's used a lot in finishes. You see them more in finishes, in my opinion, than you do in full maturation. I don't know if that's just value of the casks, or if sometimes you can't age them nearly as long, so it works a little bit better as a finish. Definitely can be more powerful than some of the other wine casks out there. It can overtake it pretty quickly, I know, in some instances. Again, the regions, different variations. You can sit here and go back and forth all day with debates on how a wine cask might work better as a finish, and some people will say it works better as fully matured. And again, all those other regions, if it's bottled or distilled, like Tim was saying earlier, island versus the mainland, how far on the mainland. There's so many different variables in there. So with the ruby tawny ports, their tasting profiles, it's that dark, deep red port wine that you want to sip on for a dessert, almost like a digest after a heavy meal or something. So plum, the dried cherries, chocolates, raisins, cinnamons. I often get some of those same, leather, tobacco, those dark stone fruit notes as well. In port wines as I do in some of these whiskeys I drink. So let's go on to our next one here. Tim, I don't have control of the slides or anything. Our next pour, we got more. I guess this was aged in a Graham's port wine cask. A little bit about Graham's. It was founded in 1820 by W and J Graham's. Is one of the most, sorry, it got blurry for a second. One of the most important producers of port wine. It's necessary for grams to declare a vintage for the year to be considered a vintage in the port. I don't really know what that means. I guess a lot of ports will just either be an age statement as opposed to having a year.
Yeah,
Maybe.
exactly. So it's just like a nuance within the port situation.
Well, I can share some on that actually, if you guys want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Please,
Yes,
please.
please.
So vintage ports in particular is kind of a weird thing where it's actually aged the least amount of time in oak. It's actually aged mostly in the bottle. So vintages are declared kind of like champagne houses. Every 3 to 10 years, they all come and vote, and then they figure out if it's a really good year. Everyone collectively, they declare vintage, and then it's immediately taken out of the oak casks. Usually at that point in time, it's in there for about 2 years when they go through and vote that. And if it's not considered a good vintage, then they would consider it a ruby port. Now, ruby port, which everyone knows is like 20 to 30 bucks, that actually has another 2 years of oak aging. So it has more oak aging than vintage ports. From there, if someone says, you know what, actually, I thought this was a great year, they turn it into a Colheita port. So you might see those kind of vintage Colheita ports. Those are like tawny vintage ports.
Got it. Amazing stuff, Ricardo. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
I definitely have heard about that vintage year scenario with it. You can actually go and look at specific years, and that they'll say like 1993, 1997, 2001. These were spectacular. So that creates the category, if I'm not mistaken. So loveliness. Let's get to the whiskey.
All right, so the way you pronounce this, Auchroisk, the CH is more of a TH sound. Again, 1993 Maverick, is that, I'm assuming, is the bottling line?
Yeah, as far as I know. Yep.
Okay. Was that on our first slide? Was Maverick one of the ones listed?
It was not, but
okay.
I've had 1 or 2 of these before. I feel like that it may be noting that it's one of like the first bottlings with that distillery. I could be wrong though.
Okay, one of the first bottlings with that.
With
that
like one of Murray's first whiskeys with Auchroisk.
Auchroisk, right? Okay, that makes sense. So again, 1993, 2004. It's 11 years. Don't know the number of bottles on it. 46%. I mean, it's been divvied out into multiple, probably in the 1,000 range for bottles. Really know. Bourbon finished with that Graham vintage port pipe. I mean, even the color on it alone, when you hold up to a light, almost has that really, I don't know, copper reddish tint to it.
Yeah, there's a pinky quality.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question here?
100%.
Just do mileage on what Ricardo just said.
Yeah.
How often does vintage port pipes or vintage characteristic, or I don't know how to say it, but how often does it
kind of broke up
happen to say it's a vintage year?
Could you repeat that question?
How often can we say it's a vintage year in the port pipes, or I don't know, the
cask type?
Yeah. So he said we have vintage, ruby, and I don't remember the third one. But is it very often to have vintage port, or is it like a rare thing, or it's...
Yeah, vintage port in particular, you won't find a bottle of vintage port for less than 80 bucks. And you want to actually age those for like decades in the bottle. Vintage ports, usually it's anywhere between 3 and 4. Vintages are declared every 10 years. Now, it does happen sometimes back to back, but I don't think it's ever happened 3 years in a row. they all get together and vote, just like champagne. They all the big houses get together and be like, is this a vintage year? No. Maybe, you know, they all make a vote. And if it is declared a vintage, then everyone again immediately takes that liquid out of those barrels and put them directly in the bottles. Because that means that that year is showing like exceptional fruit characteristics, you know, like long aging, like depth. It's showing all the things that you want. So they're taking it out. They don't want the oak to change that or to mask it or to ruin it. They want that kind of like, yeah, they want to keep that clear kind of like just juicy flavor. So there's, again, vintage is the highest, and then there's ruby, again, aged a little bit longer. That's on the side where there's very little oak aging. On the other side is tawny, which probably most people see that kind of like tawny 10, 20, 30, 40. They're not actually aged for that long. They're just style. They say that that's 10-year style or 20-year style. Those ones, again, will be different because they have a lot more oak aging to them. So they're going to come across a lot more because the oak is porous. So it gives across, like it oxidizes a bit, right? So you get a lot more oxidized flavors. You'll even notice a tawny port will have like a bricky brown kind of rim to it. Anyways, I'm going way too long.
No, this is great.
Defeating the purpose. Okay.
No, not at all,
But
man.
if I'm right on this, you said vintage or bottle pretty fast because you don't want the oak to have influence on it. I'm right?
Right, yeah.
So what's the point to get those barrels to get on whiskey if you don't have the wine to be settled in those barrels for a long time to get all the flavors in those barrels? Is it better to have a vintage barrel or a ruby one because you have more flavors in the ruby one because it was there much more longer than in the vintage? So is it just a statement?
It could just be a statement, but again, something that's declared a vintage, if it's just had a vintage port only in there, that's going to be the best port they could pretty much ever produce. So the flavors in that barrel are going to be like outstanding, even though it's only been in there for 2 years. It's going to be like old school Macallan versus new school Macallan. It's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah. So it's basically it's just different. So it's prioritizing the very fruity, like the notes of the port that are the most desirable from a port drinker's perspective, whereas those other two designations are, you're going to end up with an end product that has, you know, more oak influence or less oak influence. So when they say vintage port, my understanding is that this is the apex level of what's it called, of liquid that was in the cask originally. So the expectation for someone putting whiskey into a vintage port pipe versus a tawny or a ruby is that it's really going to accentuate the fruitiness and the austerity of that port character.
So even if it's shorter in the barrel, you will have more flavors coming from an amazing product getting in the barrel at first.
Right.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, makes sense too.
And I mean, on the nose, to me, this is like, it could be a port. There's some alcohol forward notes that are definitely prevalent, but I've had vintage grams. There's another maker too that I'm brain farting on at the moment that I had maybe a month ago with a really nice steak after the steak.
Taylor's,
Yep.
Yeah,
Definitely Taylor's. And to me, like this is just really, really heavy on the dark cherry.
yes.
I don't want to say a dark chocolate because there is a sweetness there, maybe a semi-sweet chocolate. Almost like a semi-sweet Nonpareil.
Chocolate.
Give it a taste.
Absolutely.
very chewy. I mean, massive plum, cherry notes, oakiness with a drying effect towards the end. I mean, I feel like this is a theme we're going to be revisiting throughout this tasting. But to me, this one, it has the most aggressive cask influence. Sometimes with ports, there can be a sulfur kind of a note to it. I don't get any sulfur on this, and I'm super sensitive. To me, this is a more alcoholic version of a vintage port.
Yeah.
Like I would have this after a red meat meal and be very satisfied. For how forward the flavor is, the finish isn't as long as the Glendullan.
Just ask it. I could Google it, but do we have any information on Auchroisk? Are you saying it okay?
On Auchroisk?
Yeah.
It's a space side distillery. I think they first started distillation in '74, so I mean it's fairly young in a sense, as you know, when you're looking at whiskeys out of space side. Typically they don't do, they're in a lot of blends. I think they have like a 12-year standard, and pretty much that's about it. You'll only see the older ones or even younger ones, different caskings and from independent bottlers. I know, gosh, what did I read? Auchroisk means poured across stream or red, I don't know, something, or poured across the red stream, I think is what I read. So yeah, just very, relatively new, 1974. I'm not hardly sure who they provide whiskey to for some blends.
J&B, I saw online. Is there a
The
big
J&B?
Yeah, because we don't see them pretty often in
No.
stores or.
Do they? No, not Bells. Do they provide the Bells?
Diageo, Ricardo just said J&B means Diageo. This is just so rich, like.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think Ricardo said pour this over ice cream, and that 150%.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Tim. I mean, it is just a heavy ABV vintage port.
Seriously, like
yeah. I mean, it's almost it's weird. It's got a higher ABV, but it's watered down. If you were to drink a port, it's not obviously in your face, but it's classic profile of a port on a very high ABV scale.
Yeah.
I mean, even the nose now, when you go back to it, it to me, anyways, it noses more like a port now than it did when I first got to it.
I'd agree with you.
Again, like I was saying with the last drink we have before, you tell me it's 11 years old, I won't I won't agree with you. It's much more complex than this.
I really think that is ascribed to picking exceptional casks. Like, especially since this is a proper acing. I wish we knew how long it was. If I was to guess, I would say 4 or 5 years, because how intense the profile is.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was saying at the beginning. You tend to see some of these vintage ports or port pipes more as a finish. It's just going to overpower the spirit so much, overtake the spirit so much. It doesn't work. Very rare for one to work well as a fully matured cask. Now maybe in peat it stands a chance, because you get that peat smoke really forward, it mellows it out a little bit more. So maybe that's where I've seen a little bit more of the full maturations is good whiskey.
Yep.
Well,
like with
maybe Russell could answer that question. Was it as dark as we see in the picture right there? Because in my glass, it's not. No, I guess
Russell
not.
just-
No, that's deceptively dark. That's some sort of photoshopping or
Yeah,
that ain't right.
that's what I guess. Yeah. Thanks.
Russell, do you know what the Maverick stamp stands for on this bottling?
No, not off the top of my head.
Yeah, I may have to dive into this later and come back with an answer. I think it has to do with how many bottlings there were, but I'm not entirely sure on that. So, we got one more in the chat. Oh, Redbreast 27 has a ton of port finishing. 1,000%. I love that whiskey. I'm pretty sure that Russell also enjoys that Redbreast 27. I'm a big port fan myself, but at the point where it completely overarcs the spirit, I have to be in a certain kind of mood for that type of thing. I think that's where we're at with this one. I'm not put off by it. I think it's really interesting. It's fun.
That was great.
Yeah.
Good.
Are we ready to make the move to the next one? All right, let's do it.
What did we got next?
So next up, we've got a whiskey that has been aced in Madeira. So Madeira is an oxidized fortified dessert wine from the island of Madeira. Ranges in style from a dry to sweet. The wines are incredibly stable and known to age for exceptionally long periods, including over 100 years.
Yeah.
Love a Madeira wine. Love Madeira influenced whiskey. We're getting some burnt caramel, walnut oil, so a little bit of nuttiness there. Peach, so some stone fruits, hazelnut, orange peel. I agree with all of those. I definitely typically get on the sweeter side of citrus. So we're going to dive right into whiskey number 5, which is 1995 Tobermory. Comes from the Isle of Mull, which is where my wife's family comes from. Big up to the McLean clan. This is a 1995 whiskey, bottled in 2007, 12 years old at 46%, started in bourbon and aced in Madeira. By the bottle number, I'm going to say that this is a multiple barrique scenario at 3,500 bottles. Tobermory spirit tends to be on the more aggressive side of things. I love a Tobermory. I especially love a Tobermory in a wine cask. So let's get into the nose. Right off the bat, I'm getting some damp straw. I get a note of, like I mentioned earlier, I'm very sulfur sensitive. I get a note of like fresh rubber sulfur, which to me is the more dealable portion rather than like a rotten egg sulfur. I'm not put off by this at all, though. I get a tangy berry, like a black currant.
Yeah, dates. Yeah, apricots, war biscuit, malt. Some of those same notes you got.
There is a savory. There's a savory note at the end.
Yes, cinnamon clove, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Almost like a warm baking spice.
What's the cookie that has cinnamon? Oh my gosh.
Like a snickerdoodle.
Snickerdoodles. Yes. There is a salinity to it, which I definitely do get on Tobermory, being that this is a a Western Isle. No notes in the chat, so let's go right to the palate.
Acidic to me.
A little bit more than the last few for sure. I feel like Tobermory does have, there's an ashiness to the aftertaste also.
Yeah, there's the wood. Means wood's way more prevalent on the palate than was on the nose.
Absolutely. I don't get a massive Madeira influence to this, like I've had from like some Bunnahabhains, which kind of makes me wonder if this is a shorter acing, or if they've vatted a couple barriques, if maybe not all of those barriques were aced with the Madeira.
This is more of a Madeira finish than a actual maturation.
For sure. Once, now that I've had a taste, dropping back into the nose and doing a very slow inhale, I get a lot of that Madeira quality.
All right, Tim. Someone's going to get into the Zoom. There might be someone waiting line there.
Oh, yep. We got Dustin coming through. Thanks for that, Ricardo.
So Madeira actually, or Madeira, is actually very similar to a port. The reason why it has a kind of a characteristic of it being kind of cooked or oxidized is because they used to bring it over by boat and they would keep it in their engine rooms. So it's kind of just a fun fact. So I think they try to replicate that now today. I don't know if they're using the same. Back in the day, used to be smaller barrels for them to get them onto boats, but that's what they do now to kind of replicate that.
What's the? It's on the Madeira Island, so that's off the coast of Spain, though, right?
It's actually closer to Morocco.
Italy.
Oh, it's
Morocco.
off.
Okay.
Interesting. So Mediterranean.
So I've been in the liquor industry for 15 years, and I have like wine knowledge, beer knowledge, spirits knowledge. So I just know a random bunch of random shit that no one really cares about. But when you're in a room with a bunch of guys, everyone's like, "Oh, that's kind of cool to know that little fun tidbit there."
I love it all, Rick. Please keep interjecting. This is all stuff that I love to know. The more you know, the better you are. Isn't that G.I. Joe's situation?
Yeah.
The power is yours. Checking the chat. I think we got a couple. Yeah, Ricky's Ricky, you're hired to the presenter group. Guess what? You're doing the next two. No, I'm joking. Dustin, welcome. Knowing is half the battle.
There it is.
This is an interesting one. I'm not sure if I'm super sold on it.
So if you want to get more of the Madeira characteristic from this one, just if you've already poured the seventh one, which is the other Tobermory, which I think is like amazing in that red wine cask that we have here.
Definitely.
Just back and forth, like that Madeira is going to jump. It's going to be a little bit of a funkiness, kind of a like everyone's saying, like cinnamon, gingerbread, baking spice, warm spices, but there's a touch of funkiness to it as well.
Yeah, I do. I agree. I get some herbal and floral notes.
Great call on that comparison. Totally different game. Yeah, that Chateau Latour. Whew. Can't wait to try that one. But it definitely it gives an idea of the depth of the character of the Madeira. It's definitely, to me, it's more of like a plum, almost like a reduction of those darker stone fruits. so much cinnamon we're getting. I completely agree. How's everybody feeling? We're ready to make the move to whiskey number 6.
Sure.
Not getting any complaints, so let's make the move. And here we go into Bordeaux. So the next one is going to be presented by Travis.
What do we got? All right. Chateau Lafite, I believe. Bordeaux wine estate located in, now I have no idea, Paulliac?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Paulliac, France. Owned by members of the Rothschilds family since the 19th century. One of 5 chateaux of Bordeaux, originally awarded first growth status in 1855 classification. Since then, it's been a consistent producer of one of the world's most expensive red wines. The taste profile, black currant, plums, graphite, interesting note, cedar, and violet. I am very unfamiliar with any of this type of wine. I don't know anything about it. So,
Ricky,
I'm ready to jump in. So Bordeaux,
do it.
left bank is usually Cabernet Sauvignon dominant. On the right bank is more Merlot dominant. They're always blends, and this being one of 5, like they're saying in the classification of 1855, there's 5 Bordeaux on the left bank that all won that classification. For them to get to be the top tier of that classification, they had to have been consistently selling wine at the most expensive price back in 1855. So you're talking like maybe $5 a bottle back then, but they were selling it at like the highest prices that no one else was even coming close to. Now today, in some of these kind of vineyards, they literally have machines that will look at every single grape, and it's like analyzed by a computer. And if the grape is not like 95% or 98% pure and perfect, it gets tossed away. So they're coming up with like the best of the best of the best, hand sorted, hand picked, then run through a machine, and then they're doing everything possible, like very little oak aging, tons of balancing. And if you try any of these wines, from like you're looking at like 500 to like 7,000 a bottle, they're like unreal. Like they will blow your mind. But you usually need a ton of aging in the bottle, or a ton of just like decanting, like hours.
Yeah.
So like you were saying just a few minutes before, they are not waiting for a vintage year. They are picking the grapes to have a vintage year every year.
Not quite, actually. They don't actually produce vintage years, so they actually will have a ton of tiers. Their highest end tier is not made every year. It's only when it's a really good vintage year. That's a good point. So they'll have a bunch of under label. It'll still say Chateau Lafite, but it will be a lower tier because there's 5 different tiers there.
Yeah, I've had 2 Chateau Lafite wines, and they were absolutely mind-blowing tasty. I've had more whiskeys that were finished or matured in Chateau Lafite than I have the wine. I feel like I should probably change that, but oh my gosh, the nose on this is just.
let's go to the next slide.
Yep.
So the whiskey we're drinking that's in your glass here is the Clynelish 1997, bottled in 2010, 13 years, again 46%. Again, no distinction on how long it spent in each cask, but it started its life in Bourbon, finished in the Paulliac, and then enhanced by Chateau Lafite casks. Now I don't know. So I'm not familiar with the Paulliac cask type. Is that just the size then?
No,
I mean,
the
it's a
Paulliac is the type of wine. Ricardo can probably be more succinct about this, but they're blends of a couple different grapes. So
Okay.
Paulliac is just the designation. I've had a bunch of Paulliac from of Paulliac influenced whiskeys, matured and finished from Isla, and I love the qualities to them. So I've never had any Highland whiskeys though that have been in a Paulliac Chateau Lafite cask. On the nose is just so different from everything else that we've had, in my opinion. There's a salinity to it.
like a honey nut Cheerios.
Oh my gosh, great call out, Travis. That's killer. I was going to say, like, if anyone's ever been up to the Orkney Islands, they have the beer barley oat cakes, and like a honey drizzled beer barley oat cake. Really nice balance of all kinds of flavors here. I would once again, we're here with a 13-year-old whiskey that on the nose, I would never think that it was that young. There's a depth of character to it. Give it a taste.
Caramels, coffee, some of those.
Very long development.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
A hint of pepper or spice at the end. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful though. It's my favorite by far so far, Russell.
When I first nosed it, I thought I caught a waft of Highland peat. And now at the very, very back end of the finish, I'm getting a note of it too. Going back to the nose, there's an ashiness there too that I get with some.
To that Highland peak back there. More of like that forest piney peat.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's not like this Spirit run was peated, but maybe the one before it was.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. And I think Clynelish, didn't they do some, or was that in the 80s that they did some peated? Early 80s, I think.
Yeah, any certainty.
I'm not sure they did it in the 90s, but that is a great whiskey.
The chat's got out of hand.
Oh, is it popping off? Let's see what we got. Graphite. Yep. Ricardo, hilarious.
Because Russell said we're gonna do a Jura tasting with 34 different woods, so I was like, oh, that's
that's killer. I mean, if anyone could do it, Jura would do it.
That's a beautiful dram. Nice choice.
And I mean, from a ton of other Clyneliches, that I don't think I've tasted one that was on this level.
That's what I was going to say. Exactly the same. It's the first time I taste a Clynelish like this.
Yeah,
Does anyone else finish in Chateau Lafite cask that we're aware of? I've actually never heard of that.
Yeah,
Um,
for
anyone
sure.
else aware of someone else that uses that?
You got Bruichladdich. They've
Makes sense.
done a few, not a few, but I know the Microprovenance. They have the Chateau Lafite cask. It's pretty good, by the way.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, there's not a ton because you got to remember, like John LaFrance that doesn't want to show his face. Their wines are like considered like they're like royalty wines, right? So they will reproduce and reuse that oak over and over for kind of their lower tiers, but they usually won't sell it off.
Yeah.
Kind of weird, like it's just a weird thing that they do.
It's
So it's
protected.
because
for-
this guy had this relationship, the people that were Murray McDavid, that's why they got this. Is that the whole vibe? Is that the point?
Yeah.
Well,
that's
like Jim Murray uses Chateau Lafite cask in Black Arts. Like that's one of the barrels that he mentions through the earlier Black Arts that he was part of. So
Yeah.
I'm sure they're just literally trading whiskey. They're like, hey, here's like 2 cases of whiskey, and you give me a barrel type thing, right?
I'm sure that there's a give and take there with it. The crazy thing about this, though, and I'm sure Ricardo, you can attest to it. Most of these premier or even premier Grand Cru Bordeaux producers, they don't want their name attached to whiskey specifically. Almost to the point where, like, I know I was on a tasting with Bruce from Dram Fool, and they had a wine cask finished whiskey. Jim McEwan was on the tasting, and someone asked who's the producer, and Jim said to Bruce, if you say who the producer was, I'll never do a tasting with you again. So it's a guarded scenario. So the fact
And
that,
why?
because of it's a brand, and they're protecting the, like Ricardo said, this is a royalty level wine, so they don't want their name associated with a product that isn't at that same level. So there must have been something about this one that either the makers at Clynelish, or because of Mark Renier and Simon's connections, that they were able to name this as a Chateau Lafite, because there definitely have been Bruichladdich that were aged in Premier Cru Bordeaux that resulted in lawsuits to stop them from using the name.
Well, it's a great pick.
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, everything about it is just.
I think I drink a lot of that one.
I'm gonna leave a little bit of this for later too, I think. Back to it.
Yeah,
Any
after
other-
the tasting, we can do a second tasting because I left a little bit of everything since we start. So
the finish on this is just going forever.
Boy.
I love a Clynelish, and this combo, I'm gonna be seeking this bottle out for sure. All right. And
Russell, these hard to come by? Were these fairly hard to come by?
Yes. That's the short answer. I'm sure you could find them on auctions fairly easily, but yeah, you ain't find them at the LCBO.
Bottle 13 years ago, so anything bottled 13 years ago is usually pretty hard to find.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. 2010, just try. Maybe you'll find one.
They're definitely out there. You got to be persistent and patient, is what I've found.
Yeah.
All right. Are you guys ready to make the move to
Let's
whiskey
roll.
number 7?
Let's do it.
Yeah. I got a lot of thumbs up, so let's make it happen.
Oh, dark this one is, baby. Woo.
All right, so here we go to another Bordeaux. I'm thrilled to be presenting this one. So this is another Tobermory. Once again, from the Isle of Mull on the west coast of Scotland, just outside of Oban. So if you ever make a trip there, it's 1,000% worth the short ferry ride over to Mull. Scope the island out. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. This whiskey has been aced in a Chateau Latour, which is a French wine estate rated as a first growth, just like the Chateau Lafite, 1855 Bordeaux classification. Latour lies at the very southeastern tip of the commune of Paulliac in the Meadow region of the northwest of Bordeaux, at its border with Saint-Julien. And once again, we're getting some current notes, which I absolutely adore. I love the tanginess of a red or a black currant, plum, graphite. So once again, some minerality to it. Cedar, which is a little bit different as far as wood note goes, and violet. So absolutely getting a bit of a floral quality to this one. I'm still getting the Tobermory distillery note to it though.
Yeah, the spirit still sorry.
It lives on.
Yeah, lives on. That's perfect.
Oh my gosh, this nose is just spectacular. Not a hint of any sort of sulfur to it, which you definitely can get with red wines. I get almost like like taking a bagel and drying it out, throwing a little bit of Irish butter, like a sweet butter on top. A lot of berries too, very jammy at the end of the nose.
Hey Tim, can you advance the slide one?
Oh my gosh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
So this is another 95 Tobermory, 14 years old. I find that wine maturation, whether it's a full maturation or an acing, I love those wines that are under like the 18-year zone, especially if it's a really high spirit quality, because then you're not getting that overarching wine influence. 370 bottles, so 1,000%. This has got to be a single barrique. Bottled for Flickenchild whiskey. I've had a couple of their bottlings over the years.
This is available. This is available at the LCBO though.
No.
Yeah, I saw it there last week.
In a time machine?
I'm just kidding. I haven't been in the LCBO.
Flickenchild is like a more German or Swedish or something like this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's German. Those Germans do a lot of good work over there.
Oh yeah, they do.
All right, give it a taste. Oh wait, we have notes in the chat. Sorry about that. Bubblegum, Hubba Bubba from Reggie. Yep, 150% there. Anybody have a Hubba Bubba recently? I just had one, a piece of gum like 2 weeks ago, and now they've cored out the gum so that there's less gum involved with it. It used to be like one little piece that's, you know, severed. Now it's like a star shape if you look at the end. They're getting the crunch down, but I fully get that gum note to it. We also have very lush, no sharp edges. Totally agree with that. It's very pleasant on the nose. This is another one that I could just sit with. Give it a taste. Wow. This is another one that the complexity is just developing. Sorry for the dead air. There's just a lot going on. This one actually, there some of the earlier black arts. This reminds me of the 3 from Bruichladdich. Very, very fruity. I mean, intense berries, forest berries, raspberry. I'm not getting any off notes to it whatsoever. The wood is very prevalent for me at the front of the palate, and as it starts to dissipate, I get it just acquiesces to the fruitiness. Going back to the nose, I do get a little putty, like wood putty.
Jubes.
Prune juice? Was that?
No, jubes. Jubes, buddy.
Oh, juice. There's a gummy quality to it. Like in the UK, they have wine gums. I get a little bit of an essence of that. Do you guys in Canada do you guys have the Razzles? It's like a candy that you initially chew, but then it turns into gum. Oh, jujubes. Colin just said. I'm really enjoying this one. Anybody else have some input?
I'm not sure I've ever had a whiskey with these flavors, like this kind of profile. It's really nice. It's so unique.
Ricardo, I think I'm with you. This is really, really good. I couldn't hold off from finishing it either. A couple of the others I left a little for later. Couldn't do it. Yeah, that's just spectacular. I would never in a million years, if I tasted this blind, think number one that it was 14 years old.
Nope.
To me, this is 18 plus. 46%. I would put it at the 50, 52 zone, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh. And I don't detect a hint of bourbon influence whatsoever. The Chateau Latour has completely eclipsed any bourbon influence. I'm not mad about it.
This is very a tree ladder spirit. You have the nose, you have the mouth, you have the finish. They don't have the same characteristic or the same flavors and the tree floor. I don't know how to say it, but you smell it, you have something. You taste it, you have something. The finish, you have something. This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it just continues and continues its influence. Whew.
Well made. Nice job.
Oh my gosh. To me, this is an easy 92 out of 100. maybe
I
more.
agree.
If I had more of it, it might even go up. Even going back to the empty glass, the nose is just unreal.
Russell was saying that it's still available at the LCBO.
I'm sure.
Yeah, me too.
If that's the case, I'll see you guys in Canada. And Newark has a lot of direct flights all over the provinces. So, oh my gosh, I'm just blown away. That's they have proper 12. Colin, I love the sense of humor that you guys have. Next level.
It's hard to tell, but right now it's my number one from the 2, 4, 6, 7 we've tasted.
Yeah.
I do see a little bit of bourbon probably near like kind of the mid finish. Like you do get that little bit of kind of vanilla caramel on the finish and kind of that little bit of sharpness, but it's not really there on the
More
palate.
on the sweetness, I will tell. The sweetness come from the bourbon, and the fruitness come from the Paulliac, the Chateau Latour. But from my point,
Yeah. I'm blown away by that one. All right. So we are closing in on, this was about an hour and a half in. So let's get started with the final whiskey of the group, which has its own situation. We are back to a Syrah influenced whiskey, which once again is going to be imparting some blueberry, black plum, milk chocolate, so sweeter chocolate notes, tobacco, green peppercorn. And this is our only whiskey. Oh, I jumped the gun. This is a Guigal Hermitage, which is indicating that's from the appellation d'origine contrôlée AOC in the Northern Rhone version of France and south of Lyon. It produces mostly red wine from the Syrah grape. However, small quantities of white wine are also produced from Roussanne and Marsanne grapes. The hill seen by some as the spiritual home of the Syrah grape quality. So we are in the nucleus of the Syrah type of wine influence. And here we are with a Bowmore from 1996. This is bottled in 2005, only 9 years old. I adore I adore whiskeys from Islay that are under 10 years old, especially some Bowmores with the wine influence. So I cannot wait to dive into this. There's 1,500 bottles. I would assume that that's probably 2 barriques, but not entirely sure. They don't say what type of cask, but they do say casks as a plural. So I'm thinking it's probably 2 barriques. And it's been reduced down to 46%. This nose is wild.
This has to be the hottest nose though, like the alcohol is very prevalent for sure.
It is. It's very much in the forefront. It almost, there's almost like when you first light a fire, there's a sharpness of the wood as it begins to catch. There's a tanginess also. I'm not entirely sure what, almost like if you've had a proper Scottish breakfast, like the the seared tomato.
You see Russell's tasting note? I think that's pretty good. Strawberry marshmallow forest fire.
Oh, yeah. Marshmallow is right in there. It's in the cup. Who's this Russell guy? Oh, bacon. Totally. It's very, to me, there's a almost like an artificial strawberry. Very, very light peat too. Just a slight waft. I agree with you, Bogman. Slightly burned marshmallow. Yeah, there's a touch of ashiness.
It comes through in the taste though. It's beautiful. Oh my gosh.
I haven't even gotten there yet. I'm just.
Oh my god, I couldn't stop. I couldn't wait.
I want to exist in this nose. The nose has staying power, just like the fossils of the dinosaurs on Russell's shirt. There's some Paleolithic qualities to this.
That's a first.
Do you want some dinosaur notes here? Oh my gosh, I can't. I have to taste it now.
I love that ash. Oh.
There's the peat. Okay. Wow. In 1,000 years, I would never guess that this was a 9-year-old whiskey. There's so much depth as the palate meanders towards the finish. Oh my gosh. I love a young Bowmore because the peat never relaxes. Some of the older Bowmores, it tends to peter out as you make your way through the palate, but this one, the peat is just hanging right on with the fruitiness. I think Russell made a comment earlier. Wait for the Bowmore.
Yeah.
Now I know why. So Russell also said, if this was a Dino Sour, which color would it be? I'm gonna go with a burnished apricot. I do get now that I've tasted it, I do get a touch of sulfur on the end of the nose, but it's not off-putting at all. Really, really incredible.
I'm with you, Tim, on the sulfur. Like I can't nose or taste whiskeys with any sulfur anymore. And
yeah,
this is a very clean amount. Like,
yeah, it's
very, very faint.
It's right. It's actually integrated into the rest of the flavor. Like it come to me. I get the peat, and then it settles for a second into a rubbery sulfur, but it's not the off-putting eggy volcanic sulfur that you get sometimes with wine casks.
No, and this one actually, it sounds weird if I say it, but it has like a little bit of like a rust characteristic to it, which I don't usually get like a rust. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think, like, I've had a ton of, like, I love Bowmore in claret. like the Dusk, or the original claret. There's a couple French oak Bowmore, older Bowmores that I've had that I would guess that they're probably maybe in a Syrah, but this one, wow, I'm kind of speechless. Nothing off-putting whatsoever.
Is it weird if I just start clapping at this tasting now? Because this is like this is honestly like a really good.
We could
Like,
slow
thank you
clap
so
it.
much, Russell. This is great. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, pretty good. Great job.
Russell, you son of a gun.
Yeah, putting all 8 together.
You've done
Yeah.
it again, my friend.
Yep, every time.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
I think you could do better, Russell.
Well, you have to put a mark somewhere. You know what I mean?
It's impossible with his tastings.
Oh.
It's just
And with Russell's breadth of experience, that's a quantum claim.
Well, we'll see in the next few weeks at the Telescomania.
Truth.
so. Usually at this point, what was everybody's favorites? Are we doing that tonight as well?
Yeah,
A little
1000%.
Just open up those Taliskers. Let's keep going.
Yeah, forget it.
Well,
You know what? We're gonna run it straight through.
when you did a surprise drop, you might as well do a surprise tasting.
Here we go. We're going right into the Talisker. It just arrived today with me.
Oh boy.
Don't even have it open. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I do want to smell them. Smell the package. Don't quote me on that. We're still recording. I'll erase that off of the recording.
No, don't worry about it. We're unedited here. People don't like it, they can move on.
We're getting some ratings here.
Yeah.
Drew and Sheila said. Drew and Sheila.
Hey, Tim, will you get rid of the screen here?
Yeah.
Unless there's other, or do we have any closing slides or anything? I don't know.
No. It's just congratulations for coming here to the McDavid Judgment Day. Get your capitals, get out of here. We'll see you next time.
Get in the chopper.
Get in the capita.
It's not a tumor.
It's not a finish. It's a full maturation. Get out of here. All right. Should we cancel the recording at this point, Russell?
Let's get a. Say we take head count on who won the one or who won the evening or whatever before we end.
That's totally true. Very true.
The nose on the Clynelish is my favorite, but the palate of the Bowmore is hard to beat. That's my take.
Okay, so nose of the Clynelish, palate of the Bowmore. That's what our fearless leader has chucked in. We've got number 8, which would be from Pierre. Number 8 would be the Bowmore. Number 6 in second place. Dave says Clynelish for the group that he is with. Pogman says 876. He's a Pete head. Next time for you, Pogman. We'll come through with more Pete for you. But yeah, this one that Bowmore was ridiculous. Brent says 768. So right there in those top. I mean, I'm gonna be with you to a degree on the number 7. That was insane. That's the best Tobermory I've had, unequivocally. So I'll chuck that out there. Drew and Sheila say number 1 Heathens Blend, then Bowmore proper. respect to that. Brian says 7, 6, 8. So another one that's there with that Tobermory. I think that whiskey just blew me away. I have to rethink my thoughts on Tobermory and how I'm going to go at the auctions. Pac-Man was my favorite dram from Dustin. Obviously, that's the case for everybody. Top 3, 8, 1, 6 from my main man here, Travis. I'm not going to argue with that. I love going through whiskeys like these and putting them up against each other. I mean, I enjoyed all of them. I enjoyed our time together. Reggie says,
Which one
6.
sucked, Tim? Which one sucked?
Which one? I mean, I don't think there was one that I didn't enjoy here. There definitely have been.
Gotta have one that sucks, Tim. Come on, man. They can't all be good.
No, you can have a least favorite, not one that sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
I'd put these all above an 80, obviously, on a 100 scale. I think if I had to put one close to 80,
Old Rhsodhu?
No, that one was so fun. That was so fun. I think it would be the Glendullan.
Funny because that Old Rhsodhu has the oldest, like it's the eldest one, but it was like very malty and kind of basic a little bit on the nose until it opened up even more, even though I had it open for so long. But on the palate, it was like it was nuts. Like you can't
a hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to go. I mean, I wasn't even mad at the Glendullan, but if I have to pick one that is the lowest on the totem pole, it would be that one. I would drink any of these 1,000% if someone gave them to me. Most of them I may be chasing in the auction. So if you also do that, let's pick who goes for which one. So we're not bidding.
That's what I want to know. Who actually wants to go? Which bottle are you going out and you actually want to buy?
Clynelish for me.
That Clynelish is spectacular.
That was a banger.
I'll lay off for a couple of months on that if I can focus on the Tobermory and the Bowmore. And if anyone
Tobermory, Paulliac, Chateau, Latour will be mine.
The Chateau Latour killer.
I'd seek the more, but I would grab that Glendullan or however the hell you say it. Just because it's so different. You know, it's one that no one would be like, I've never heard that. I don't know what that is.
Travis, if you get it, I'll bottle split it with you.
All right.
Like I said, all of these, this is the weird thing with Murray McDavid. Like there are definitely slouches that are out there for sure, but 1,000 million props to Russell for curating this group, because these are spectacular. Wonderful work, my friend. Wonderful work. And I think now we can slip out of the recording zone, if that's all right with everybody.
We're gonna do cheers. Everyone do cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Good night.
Cheers.
The New Whiskey Order. To the next one. We'll see you very, very soon.
To the next home run.
Cheers, folks.